Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Weddings Unedited.
Yeah.
We're back together.
We are back together.
Finally in the same room.
It feels like it's been a really long time.
I know.
Like months.
Really upset about it. But, we're here together again. And we've got our Bloody Marys today.
We finally, it's been 2 or 3 episodes since we've actually had a drink.
Well, I had a drink last time, and if you noticed.
But a themed drink, if you will.
Right. Today's themed drink is a good old-fashioned Bloody Mary.
Perfect.
Can't really go wrong with that.
No.
With the real dill Bloody Mary mix. It's a pickle juice base to the mixture with all the seasonings. We got some pickles and
I guess I didn't know it was a pickle juice base, but it makes sense because they're a pickle company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say we threw pickles in there. We got some green beans and
That calls for a pickle break.
a good old pickle break. We talked about that already.
If the real dill wants to reach out, sponsor us, we're still waiting.
It's delicious. So good. So today's episode, we're really excited to talk about wedding photo timelines. It is something that both Courtney and I have to do, obviously, for every wedding that we are hired for. And not a whole lot of people outside of the wedding industry maybe know a whole lot about the timelines, just in general, but specifically the photo timelines.
Oh, totally. I feel like most people just assume the day happens the way that it does. Yeah, which is what I want you to believe. I want you to believe that it is just magic.
Well, the whole idea is that you plan it out ahead of time so that when the day comes around, it is like magic. You don't have to worry about anything when you're the couple. Obviously, the vendor, different story.
Yeah.
But when you're the couple, you don't have to worry about what's happening, when it's happening. These discussions, happen way ahead of time. And yeah, so we're just really excited to dive into all things photo timeline. And basically, to start it off, we're going to, go through the beginning part of the wedding day and go through to the end to like the reception. So before we dive into that, I think maybe we should just specifically a little bit talk about the planner's timeline versus a photographer's timeline.
Yeah.
Because they are different. Obviously different purposes because the planner has to coordinate with all vendors, scheduling the florist and all this and that and listing all the things out. I feel like
the caterers,
the wedding planner timeline is so intricate.
It is so, they literally have who's who, where they're going to be, what time they need to be there. Like, sometimes I get those timelines and it'll be like, mother of the bride, 3:10 arrives. Like,
super specific.
Very specific, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas the photo timeline you're going to learn is much more relaxed, but we have to leave some wiggle space, so we can't be that down to the minute.
Yeah, I think cushioning the timeline in general is going to be a great idea for both sides. Obviously, we've talked about this. Planners, they are magicians in what they do. And, the fact that they do what they do is just like, I can't even wrap my head around all the things and all the details they have to consider.
So many.
So when they do send us those timelines, it's very helpful for us to base our timeline off of sort of the main points of a wedding day. And so I think that's where it comes into play. That's mainly the main difference is that the planner's timeline will list out everything, like we were said, super detail oriented for all the vendors, when certain people are showing up, when the ceremony space needs to be decorated, when the florist is coming in and doing all of that. And so
when they're flipping a room, when they're moving this from this place to this next place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They have to have a strategy, everything down, and completely understand. But when you look at it from a photographer's perspective, it's like a bit overwhelming.
It is.
And there's just a lot of information in there that it's not that we don't need to know. It's just it's not relevant to the things that we're doing in a sense throughout the day.
Yeah.
I don't even really want to say that because it is relevant, but it's just we don't base our timeline off of, some of these things that are happening.
Right.
And then there are things that do, obviously when the ceremony starts, when the reception starts, all of that kind of stuff, the core things are what I was referring to that we need to, know ahead of time in order to put our timeline together. And so I would say generally speaking, I'm sure there's some people out there who are different, but you and I were just discussing when we come up with this timeline, it's, about 2 months or so before the wedding date.
30 to 60 days out is usually when I try and start thinking about it for a wedding.
It's a mental space thing for us, first off.
It is. I need to mentally, like, deal with one wedding at a time.
Yep.
So if I give myself a little window, I know that, okay, this wedding's a month away, 2 months away. I need to reach out to my couple and, like, hey, let's start talking about this together. And if your planner has sent you anything, let me see a peek of that.
Yep.
But it basically starts with a questionnaire.
Yes, the questionnaires, I mean, as a photographer, just a plethora of questionnaires that we usually like to send out.
My favorite things, really.
And the wedding questionnaire is a pretty extensive questionnaire that goes over a lot of details that we need to know about your day, the things you want photographed as a couple, just all the good stuff. And once we send out the questionnaire 30 to 60 days prior, we'll have that answered back, and then we'll usually set up a phone call to go over everything with the couple to make sure everything's aligned. If they have any questions, if we have any questions, we kind of go over
changed.
Everything so that when we do come up with our photo timeline based off of all of that information, it's accurate. We're not missing anything. We have all the information. And of course, if there's ever anything last minute that comes up, the couple can just reach out to, the vendor and let us know.
Yeah.
But with that said, there's definitely a lot of planning that goes into it on our side for the timeline. So there's just a lot of information that we need to know in order to come up with it. So if you are someone who's getting married, let's say September, and right now it's March. So if you're getting married like at the end of September, and you're reaching out to a photographer or, videographer, someone who would have their own separate timeline, might be a little too early for that kind of information to know specifically everything, because like I said, we were saying questionnaires are sent out to get all of this information. You don't have your official guest count yet. You know exactly who's going to be there, maybe what details you're going to have incorporated.
Maybe you don't know where you're getting ready yet.
Yeah, you're still kind of figuring out the logistics. There's some people who have a lot of that figured out ahead of time. Wonderful. But that's generally why we wait till that 30 to 60 day mark, because there's just more information to give us.
Definitely. Everything's more secured by then.
Yeah, exactly. So, we don't want to have to worry about bouncing back and forth on different things because they're just constantly changing. We kind of just want to wait till everything's sort of solidified, but also enough time ahead where if things need to be moved around just a little bit, that's still possible too.
Yeah.
So with that said, let's dive right into
Let's do it.
the beginning of the timeline for photographers. So the first thing will be the getting ready portion, showing up and doing detail photos. So that includes, the couple getting ready with their people.
Naturally. Drinking, hanging out,
doing all the things. A woman will be getting her makeup done, hair done. Generally speaking, we don't usually need to show up when that's all really in the middle of happening.
Right.
Unless there's a whole lot of details. And this is what I was saying. It kind of goes hand in hand as the, couples finishing getting ready. That's when we dive into those detail photos, with the wedding invitation, the vow books, the rings, all the little things that you want to have
your
included.
Dress hanging, a special handkerchief or a piece of jewelry from grandma or your mom, or just anything that's sentimental and valuable to you that you want to help set your day. That's what we want to take pictures of ahead of the time before it's on your body.
Yes. And we were just also saying that so the amount of time that we normally recommend for the getting ready portion is, this can vary a lot. So really it's dependent on how many people you have getting ready with you, how long it is going to take to get your hair and your makeup done, the details that you want photographed. So including all of that, usually I would say between 1 and 3 hours. I feel like 3 hours is a lot, but at the same time, so there's some people who just have a lot going on.
Yeah, and there's some people that it's more important to them that they want that hanging out photos and those getting ready pre-wedding moments versus they don't really care much about dancing photos. Or it might be vice versa, but if that's someone like you, then we would adjust the timeline to represent more hours before the wedding versus after the ceremony.
Yes.
So that, and if you have a larger wedding party.
Exactly. So if you have
800 years to get ready.
Exactly. And, like we were just saying, I have, in the years that I've been doing this, I've never really had to start in the middle of someone getting their hair and their makeup done. It's usually towards the end, the finishing touches, like when everyone's already dolled up and ready to go. Because usually if it's a bride, she's like normally the last one to get the touches done because she's obviously the most important person to have all that done last.
Also, she doesn't want pictures of her half done face.
Well, right. Exactly. No one really wants that,
No.
especially because you're trying to show up with like really fresh face, all of this. And not to say that you aren't beautiful without makeup. I'm someone who doesn't really ever wear makeup. But if you're going to have professional photos done on your wedding day, you're most likely going to want them to be when you're looking your best.
Yeah.
Right. And so normally when you are starting to get that stuff finished and before we start that portion of the getting ready photos is when we do those detail photos.
Yeah.
And it actually, over the years, I've also come to find that it does take quite a little bit of time.
Yeah, way more than I ever think I'm going to need.
To take these detail photos. Yeah, I used to only schedule out about 15 minutes to take these photos, and I learned the hard way that you need at least 30 minutes. I'd say photographers need at least 30 minutes to take these detail photos because you also have to consider, where we're going to take them, what the lighting looks like, how many details you have incorporated, setting them up to look beautiful once we have a spot figured out. And everyone works differently. Some people have like boards that they bring with them, like mats that they'll like lay out. So even if they have that, it's a matter of finding a good spot with lighting.
Well, and lugging all that gear.
Yep.
Like I know you have those really cool acrylic stands.
Yeah.
So you have to, find your bag, open all those up, set all those out. If you're incorporating, ribbons or florals or anything like that into the details, takes a while to set those up. As much as I would love to say when you get those photos back that we just set it down and it looked that way, it didn't.
No, it's very strategic.
Yeah. There needs to be a class on this, really.
There might be.
There should be. Someone out there. Everyone's doing education these days. Somebody do that. Flat lay education, I'm in.
Yes, and that's what those, for anyone who doesn't know, the flat lays are exactly what those detail photos are. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but just in case if someone doesn't understand what that is, that's the flat lay photos are of the invitation suite, all of that, the good detail stuff. That's all wrapped up into that beginning portion of the day during the getting ready time. So next after that, it is dependent on the couple and what they choose to do, but typically right after that is the first look.
Yep.
And first looks are wonderful for a lot of different reasons.
Big fan.
The only thing you have to consider, I feel like that's might be a negative, is first looks usually, obviously first look happens before the ceremony. So the lighting for the day is usually pretty intense. It's not exactly the most ideal lighting scenario for a photographer or videographer. And so it is something that, just needs to be considered. So if you're someone who is getting married and you really want to do a first look, consult with your photographer, with your vendor to make sure that you're making the best educated decision on the location of the first look, because that's something we consider. And obviously even if we don't get the opportunity to discuss it beforehand, it's something we scout out once we get to the venue. Right. But typically, depending on if you're going to be reading your vows or if you're just doing a first look, it could be about 10 to 20 minutes. And just the first look portion, that doesn't necessarily include portraits. If you end up doing all of your portraits then it could obviously be extended like another half hour.
Why does this happen to us?
I don't know, but we could take a little break. I want to mix my... So if you are doing portraits that, like we were just saying, 30 minutes, add that on. Or you can even do like a first touch, which could also only be a few minutes.
That's true. You don't have to actually see each other.
Yeah, if you're someone who wants to save it for the moment that you're walking down the aisle, that's wonderful. That's your choice.
Totally.
And yeah.
There's alternatives.
Exactly. So 10 to 20 minutes. And then after that, if you did the first look or not, the next thing would be...
Bridal party is where I would try and go.
Yep. Wedding party is 100% what I would do as well.
Yeah, let's knock that out.
Yeah, usually, depending on the size of your wedding party, we'd say an average of 30 minutes total for all of them. So that includes the couple with everybody.
Yep.
Full group photos, and then each side. So
bride with her ladies.
Bride with her ladies, groom with the groomsmen, and then individuals with each of them.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Yep, all of that scheduled in. And so this is also like a little side note. If everyone is drinking beforehand, try not to consume too much alcohol before this portion of the day, because I can't tell you how many times the wedding party has been a little too rowdy.
Yeah, it's hard to wrangle you guys.
Yeah.
You little troublemakers.
Listen, we're all trying to have a good time. I get it. You're celebrating, but...
I'll throw my shoe at you.
Well, yeah. Depends on which shoe I'm wearing that day.
Yeah.
If I'm going to have to take time to untie it, it's not even worth it. I'll just yell at them.
Just yell at
I'm
them.
not going to stop to yell
Yeah.
at Yeah, just going to yell.
It's also the only part of the day, really, that you guys need to look good as the bridal party.
Yeah, you don't need to be looking sloppy.
No, so you just pull it together for 30 minutes, and then the rest of the day, you do you.
Yeah, and so that is the advantage of doing the first look, is that you can do these photos all before the ceremony. So it is arranging your day to be done with, all the getting ready stuff, hair and makeup, in time to do all this before. Now, if you're not going to do all of this before, then obviously you can do it after. So you need to make sure you do enough time after, push up the ceremony time so that there's enough time to do all of this. If you're only you only have about a half hour after your ceremony before your reception starts, there's just not going to be enough time. We're going to be the ball busters here just to let you know. You're not going to have time for your portraits for just the couple. You're basically going to do family photos and a couple full wedding party photos, and that's really all you're going to get.
Yeah, you're not going to get your individuals. You most likely will not get all of the family photo groupings you want. We might limit you down to maybe just the 5 most important ones, just for time.
Yeah, it would be, a conversation necessary ahead of time, but also as a vendor, it's our job to educate our clients to make sure that they are aware of the situation and making the best decisions possible for what they want.
Yeah, just knowing ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. So after wedding party, so given that you have the first look and then the wedding party, that's normally when the ceremony would start afterwards. It's usually a little bit of a leeway, about a half hour after you finish the wedding party. Downtime, because guests do start arriving.
Trying to hide you away.
Yep, you need to hide you away. You can freshen up, use the restroom, do all the good things. I mean, girls with their dresses, they need a minute to...
I like how you go like this, like you're fanning.
The fanning
Alicia's just fanning her crotch out.
Yeah, so I've had to help brides, use the restroom.
It's
if the bridesmaids are off and gallivanting and doing their own thing, do what you got to do. But so you do all the things, before the ceremony. The ceremony starts, depending on, obviously, the couple, what they have included. It's about 15 to 30 minutes for a ceremony, I'd say on average.
Yeah, I would too. It's very rare that it goes longer.
Yeah, unless you're doing a church reception, ceremony.
Or you're having a lot of people coming up doing readings or anything like that. But yeah, I would say on average about 15 minutes.
Yeah, 15, like I said, 30, pushing it is the most. But with that said, also, the ceremony time is usually set up based around the best, I would say, from our perspective, hopefully the best lighting of the day. This is something, if you are watching on YouTube,
on the boob
you
tube,
will see that this is Courtney's wedding guide here. And this is something that I have too. I just don't have it printed out right now. But it basically includes a lot of information to help you plan for your photo timeline for your day. And it goes over a lot of the different lighting scenarios that you're going to have throughout the day. And so let's say you want to have your ceremony indoors. Having your ceremony indoors, we'll normally recommend that happening a little bit earlier in the day, because the darker it gets, the less natural light there will be, the more lights we'll have to set up, flashes will have to be used.
Yep. I might have to be way closer, way more in your grill.
Yep. There's just a lot more distractions that happen if we need to be pulling out lighting. So indoor, earlier ceremony time is recommended, usually at least 3 hours before sunset.
Yep.
Once you start getting into that 2-hour window, the light starts to, especially coming in from the side windows. If there's windows, there's random harsh light coming in. But if you are doing later in the day, that is best for outdoor ceremonies.
Yep.
That is definitely about the 2-hour mark, I would say.
Yeah.
Is my recommendation around that 2-hour mark, especially in the summer. You don't want to have an outdoor wedding in the middle of the day in the summer. Dying of a heat stroke. So let's say in the summer, in August, you don't want, and the sun sets around 8:30, you don't want to start your ceremony at 3 p.m. The lighting in the middle of the day before that 2-hour mark is really harsh.
She's going to be angry lighting.
As a photographer, from my perspective, it's really intense. And so, but from my perspective as well, and the back end, post-processing, editing those photos,
way more work,
takes a lot more time if the light is way more harsh, especially if it's coming in from one side and not the other. Super dark shadows, really bright on the other side. Just all of that. We want even lighting. That is our jam. So having a ceremony happening a little bit later in the day, the lighting is a bit softer.
Or in the shade.
Or complete, if you can't, if we understand that some venues do have requirements on when, events need to end. And that's completely understandable. But yeah, working around that, if they do have a shaded area, then that's best. I would say, like, the last scenario that I would recommend if you had to do it earlier in the day outside is to be completely either 100% try to have the sun somewhere behind you or 100% in front of you.
Yep.
Now, in front of you means you'll be warm. You'll be sweating probably. You'll be blinded by the light, as they would say.
Blinded by the light. That's all I know.
Yeah, exactly. We won't be that happy, though, about it.
Nope. You're, I feel like your photos, if they're even with one or the other, that's ideal. Mm-hmm. But when you have full sun, you're going to have some bags under your eyes that aren't necessarily there.
Well, you think about it, the sun is above you.
Yep.
And it's shining down, so everything underneath has those shadows. I'm using my hands a lot in this episode.
Oh, you guys, there's some gold here today. She's milking herself if you can't watch on YouTube.
Yeah. If you're listening to this, it's wonderful. But if you also have an opportunity to go on YouTube to watch this, also recommend. So we will also be showcasing, if we haven't already yet on this video, an example timeline, photo timeline for you to see, to refer. Even I would imagine we can send that off as an example to, our subscribers if they're interested in seeing an example timeline, because honestly, I'm a visual person. Me too. Obviously.
Yeah. Surprise.
Go figure.
Yeah.
So having that in front of me, a photo timeline to refer back to, I do send it to my clients. But, someone who's maybe just starting their planning process and hasn't hired their photographer yet kind of thing, this can be a really helpful, document to refer back to.
Yeah. I would say that usually the ceremony portion is where photographers will start to use the timeline provided by the planner.
Yes.
And as we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, there are 2 separate timelines, obviously because we're doing 2 separate things. But usually before the ceremony, the planner's timeline doesn't have anything to do with photos and events because they're obviously off setting up for your day. Mm-hmm. So that's usually where your photographer, videographer will step in and take the reins. And then ceremony to end of evening is where we kind of work together.
Correct. Yeah. And sometimes things have to be rearranged depending on, like we said, if you're not going to do a first look, we need to make sure we have enough time to do your wedding party photos along with family photos, which after the ceremony, either way, family photos happen.
Always.
Immediately
after is when I ideally like to try and do it the second you're released, bride and groom coming down the aisle. Like, let's do family photos right then and there because everyone is already there. We don't have to hunt everyone down.
It's like herding cats.
It is. We don't have to so-and-so went to the bathroom. We got to wait for them. No. I know a lot of venues and planners, they like to sneak the bride and groom away for a few moments together, and you might sign your marriage certificate at that point and then come back for family photos. That's fine, but then just know in your timeline we're going to have to adjust for hunting down people and or you need to designate someone in your family to keep everyone in one spot until you guys have come back from that moment.
Yeah.
I always try and give my couples a few minutes alone, and that is after the photo portion has commenced, right before you enter the reception. Yeah, so that there is no chasing humans around.
I know, seriously. When I say herding cats, I legit mean it's like...
I think that might be easier, honestly.
If they were all Barry.
Yeah, well,
just throw some treats out.
That's true. Just jiggle the bag.
But same, I agree with Courtney. Having all of this information laid out ahead of time is great, especially from the planner, so you can arrange. But with, the questionnaire that we send out, the photo list that we get for families is important, along with having a name of the person who can help wrangle all of these people and keep them in place to either come back or stay where they're at, depending on what the timeline, how that's set up with right after this reception, or ceremony. I keep mixing the two up.
I know, I always do that. I'm like,
just want to get to the party. But after the ceremony. So we'll normally in the questionnaire get a list of the groupings that you would like with your families. Now remember, the more groupings you're going to have included, the longer it's going to take.
Yep.
I'd say, 1 to 2 minutes per grouping?
1 to 2 minutes. So if you are planning that you want 15 groupings of photos, then, at 2 minutes apiece, you're looking at already a half an hour of photos that you're going to anticipate. Obviously, some of those are going to go quicker if people are right there and easy to grab and paying attention. Some of those are going to take up to 5 minutes if you have, 30 people you're trying to squeeze in. You're trying to have extended family with aunts, uncles, cousins, whoever. Then you're going to have a lot more photos to do.
Mm-hmm. I would say, about half hour is
Yeah.
what we normally at least recommend for a large wedding with family photos.
Yeah.
That's typically, and then based off of the list that we're given, if we need to extend that amount of time or shorten it, based off that information, then we'll do that too. But a recommendation from us to, our clients and to anybody who's getting married and planning this out, giving your family members a heads up before the wedding day that they're going to be in these photos and what the plan is after your conversation with your photographer is going to definitely be something, like I said, I recommend you doing, because the more information they'll have, the better.
Yeah.
Instead of just them showing up like, oh, by the way, you need to stick around and do this and do that. Like,
Surprise.
yeah, surprise.
You're in this photo.
Yeah, I mean, family usually expects to be in some sort of photo at some point. But if they have, we need to be at this location at this time, and this is how long it's going to take, the more information they have, the better, and they can plan ahead. They can use that restroom break before.
Yes. Or hold it. And they know they only have to hold it for X amount of time.
We don't want anyone to have a bladder infection. Yeah. So whatever you got to do to prepare.
Suck it up, be an adult, and hold it, okay?
Suck it up.
I also try, if I can, to chat with the officiant or whoever is leading your ceremony ahead of time to let them know, hey, after you've let the bride and groom go. That was not a fart if you are listening. That is just some more ASMR for you. It's bubbles.
Sorry.
No, yeah, it was lovely. I felt like I was in a fish tank for a minute. I'll try and chat with the officiant and just have them make an announcement after the bride and groom have gone down the aisle. So just be like, immediate family, please stay seated, or please just kind of hang out around here.
Or go to whatever location that's been decided.
Everyone else, or go head over here. That's where family photos are happening. Everyone else head to cocktail hour. So I try and just give the family that extra reminder that they are needed.
Yeah. So cocktail hour, given that the name of itself is cocktail hour, an hour, I know, right? Who would have thunk it?
I just thought of that.
An hour is what we would normally recommend to have for cocktail hour. That in-between time where people are migrating from the ceremony spot over to either the reception area, which half the time isn't somewhere where they normally go. We'll get into that for a second after this. But wherever the location of the cocktail hour is, you send everyone off over there to have drinks, hors d'oeuvres, whatever is set up for them, so that we can take these family photos. And then when the family is done with whatever groupings, they can head on off to cocktail hour and go enjoy themselves with everyone else. And then normally that's also when we would take care of the couple's portraits. And, if we did a first look ahead in the day and we did some portraits then, that's great. This just means a little bit more.
Yeah, different lighting for this time.
A little bit more ideal lighting. This is, if you start your ceremony, let's say sun sets at 6 p.m., you start your ceremony at 4 to 4:30 ceremony, 4:30 to 5 is your family photos, then 5 to 5:30, or even cut it off at 5:20, so they have that 10-minute period of just relaxing and having moments together before people start trickling into the reception space. But also, what I was saying before, it gives us time to take some detail shots of the reception room if we don't have an opportunity to do it before then.
Yeah, because sometimes it's not set up yet.
Yeah, and if it nedes to be flipped, if they're using the same room, we kind of have to wait till that happens anyways. So that's why having the cocktail hour happening for a minimum of an hour is ideal.
Yep.
For really any situation. Even if you did do a first look ahead of time, having an hour for cocktail hour is something that definitely recommend.
Helps your vendors.
The more time, like we were saying, the more time you have for everything, that more at ease,
more relaxed
the couple will feel, the more relaxed you'll feel, the better the vendors will be able to work, because anytime anyone's feeling super rushed, there's no doubt something is going to be left behind, missed, forgotten. We do our best to make sure we have all of the information written down, or however anybody works. Have it mentally noted, so no one wants to feel rushed ever. I mean, in my life, I don't even like to feel I'm starting to sweat just thinking about rushing. So I don't want to be sweating profusely at a wedding day. So anything I can do to avoid that is the best. So cushioning your timeline, especially for photos and video. You're not going to regret it. Obviously, we work and we charge based off of our hourly rate. So more time usually does mean it's a little bit more expensive. However, with that said, you'll get not only more photos and video, you'll get better quality. And in those photos, you won't look constipated maybe, like you just like
You'll
feeling
have more
rushed.
time to relax.
Exactly, because if you are feeling rushed and you are stressed out, it's
going to show on your photos.
There's not much we can do on our end to change that. We can try.
Yeah.
Certainly, there's a lot
definitely will make some jokes for you.
Yeah, we try to ease the tension.
Yeah.
That's our part of our job too, where it's like bringing the energy and bringing the vibe. And if you are stressed out, we're going to try to calm you down. But you don't want to get to that point because honestly, it's your wedding day and you're just going to want to enjoy yourself. So the more time you have for things, the better. Believe me, it's just this one day and you can't turn back time. You can't ever
redo it.
Yeah. So, the more time, the better. So once you go into cocktail hour, get the family photos done, get some portraits done. You do need to also, with that saying we were talking about, if you are going to take your couple's portraits at a different location, either from the venue completely, or let's say I think like golf courses and stuff, like if you need to yes, if you're taking doing your ceremony, doing your family photos at one location at a country club, but then you want to go off to like a certain hole, like hole 18 or not even 18, or like 6. I don't even know how golf works, but I think it's like you start, you come back around. So I'm assuming like the farthest one is like I literally have no idea what I'm talking about.
I think you nailed it.
But if you're going to a hole, let's say, that takes 5 to 10 minutes to drive in a golf cart to, you have to incorporate that time into the timeline.
Yes, I wish we could levitate or just like appear places. That would be great. But if you have plans of shooting somewhere that aren't exactly the venue where you're going to be hanging out all night, that needs to be put in the timeline, whether it's riding a golf cart for 10 minutes to the magical hole.
Or if you're here in Colorado, if you are at a venue like in Estes and you want to go into the Rocky Mountain National Park, that is a whole other thing too. You need to really plan ahead for that. So it just really depends on what you would want to do for your day. But
we can make it happen. But we just need to know ahead of time.
But making sure exactly that you're planning accordingly for timing to get from point A to point B back to point A, to make sure you're back in time for your reception.
Your grand entrance.
Yep.
Also on top of that, sunset photos is incorporated this time of year especially. That is going to happen usually before dinner. Because obviously the sun is setting quicker.
So sad.
Yeah, it's so sad. But we're getting it's happier. Like the sun didn't set till like almost 6 the other night, and I nearly cried. There was a single tear. I was so happy.
I'm still crying because it's still too early.
Yeah, well, you and Will can cry together on that because he's
fine.
upset. Yeah. But if you are planning those sunset photos, especially in the spring, fall, winter kind of time of year, the sun is going to set earlier. And B, it sets quicker. Like, there is not a long, slow golden hour. It's like, boom, it's dark.
And dark, yeah.
So
it's like a curtain
closing. If you want those sunset photos, you definitely have to plan that ahead of time for location and adjusting for the time. Reason we say this is it just happened to me the other day where a planner sent me their timeline for a wedding I have, and they had put on the timeline, I don't even remember the time, I'll just say 7 o'clock, sunset photos, and then they had 7:15 sunset. And they want to go off onto the golf course for these photos, which is fine, but that gives us 15 minutes. Not even. That's like 11 minutes by the time we wrangle everyone in, if we're on time, into the golf cart, drive to the hole, set up the bride and groom so that they look pretty and nice, and then snap a photo, and then hopefully get to reposition them into another position, and then boom, sun's gone, and then we're driving home in the dark. Like that's what I'm picking up here.
So side note here, always refer to your specific vendor for their specific job. So a planner, obviously their job is to try to plan the whole day. They want to be as helpful as possible.
Keep it moving,
do what's best for the couple. But
and
at the
same, do a great job at that.
Yeah, absolutely. They're magicians. There's no doubt about that. But when it does come to things like this, please, please, please refer back to us, your photographer, your videographer, about any portion of the day. If your planners putting all this together before you even have a photo timeline, this is a conversation you should have with your photographer and your videographer. Go over that information with them. Make sure it works for everybody. If it doesn't, then things will need to be adjusted. Usually planners are very, flexible in that sense.
Totally.
With making
Super
sure that
easy.
Yeah, it's just sometimes they don't fully understand the lighting scenario.
Yeah.
That's where our expertise comes in, and we make our recommendations also based off of the amount of time it takes to take certain photos. Sometimes people just don't know, and that's totally fine, but that's also why you should refer back to the expert about that specific part of the day. So then after the portraits, after you have everything all planned out nicely on the timeline for portraits, after the family photos, and then you go into the reception space, hopefully there's like 10 to 15 minutes, like I said, like cushion to have us get our stuff prepared. If the sunset photos do happen before the reception, we also need to make sure we have our lighting situation situated.
I need batteries in my flash.
Batteries, video lights, flashes, equipment needs to be taken care of, all of that stuff. If it doesn't happen, then it happens a little bit later. And we'll touch on that too. But then reception starts. And normally a reception, I would say about 2 to 3 hours, maybe at most.
Yeah, maybe.
For coverage for photo and video. It obviously is super dependent on what you have going on during the reception. If you have a lot of like events happening,
and you want all of those covered.
Totally. Because normally it's entrance, either dances happen, like first dance, parents' dances, then dinner, or dinner first, and then those dances, depending, like I said, on what
the venue and
what they want to do. And then, once dinner does happen, the timeline is set up for your photographer, videographer to have a break, because we're human.
No, we're not.
We're
I'm a cyborg.
Robots.
If you didn't know.
We don't need breaks. We don't need food.
That's the best thing ever.
But giving a hot meal to your vendors, especially, a photographer, videographer, is so, so important. Like just slapping a little cold ass sandwich together with some, like a bag of chips is like not enough.
Yeah.
And literally Byron will get hangry. Like he's my second shooter. Yeah. And if you try to feed him anything less than like a hot meal, he's leaving.
You got a finger missing?
Right. So it's in my contract. If it's 6+ hour wedding day, there is a hot meal that needs to be provided.
Me and my assistants.
Correct.
And
with
second shooters.
Whoever is that's working with me. It's normally me and Byron. And usually that's like we need at least 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's been breaks that have happened that took a little bit longer, but we utilized our time and took the couple away and took some extra photos. And, we made sure we were utilizing our time. Little side note, horror story I actually told you about not too long ago, where I had a wedding a couple months back, and the couple was wonderful and the wedding was great, and we came into dinner time and their dinner lasted about an hour, which is fine, because normally we're not photographing people eating, which is also
nobody wants a picture of themselves eating,
which is a big part of the reason why we ask for our meals to be given to us when the couple's given their meals.
Yes.
So that if it is a minimum of 20 minutes, it's just while the couple is eating. And then if they wander off.
This needs to be said more. I know that it's in my contract and it's in your contract that we eat at the same time as the bride and groom. But oftentimes, like caterers, they don't know that fact.
They don't know why.
Right. They don't understand why, or they might be old school and they don't know why. They just, in their minds, we should eat last, that the guests should be served first. And I totally understand that. Like, they're all here. They're here to be
taken care of, enjoy themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And I get that. But at the same time, then that means that if we're waiting till the end to eat, the bride and groom are long past eating. They're up and doing stuff now. And
sometimes it's scheduled to, things are starting to happen. Dances are going to start to happen while people are finishing up dinner. Exactly. Because they try to overlap that so people aren't just sitting around for an hour twiddling their thumbs most of the time. That's such an important part, because it has happened to many videographers and photographers where they were fed last and literally shoveled the food into their mouth for 2 seconds, and that was it.
I've had a wedding before where they made us wait to the end, all of us, including this also includes the DJ, like DJ, photographers, videographers, that whole...
The planner.
Yeah, the venue.
I mean, planner sometimes is different.
Yeah, they kind of eat on the run. I don't know how they do it. Again, they're magical, but... Oh, no, Bear is sneaking in. If anyone's here listening, prepare
Courtney's
for the
cat.
But yeah, I've had times where I've literally been told to wait to the end, gotten my food, sat my butt cheek down, and taken...
Just one butt cheek, not two.
Because I didn't even make it all the way. Taken half a bite, and then, the planner has come in to say, hey, guys, we need to start doing cake cutting, or we need to start doing toasts. And then your food is just sitting on the table, and you literally have to walk away from it. So... it's sometimes an uncomfortable conversation with other vendors when you're saying, like, I need to eat now so that my couple doesn't miss these photo opportunities.
Yep.
It's just not fair.
No. I mean, I have had it happen where I had to eat in a separate space just because literally the reception, like there were so many people in this one little room for the reception. There was quite literally nowhere for us to even stand and eat.
Oh, God.
So we had to go to a little separate, this is a venue
I'd
that's very
prefer
different.
that
But different room, well, yes, but different room, but like completely different building.
Oh, yeah.
And since we were fed last,
I feel
we
like
started
I know the
eating and we
venue.
heard someone on the microphone saying, oh, speeches. And then we were hauling ass over. We missed like the best man speech because there was just no communication. This is where communication is key when you're a client and you're hiring your vendors and doing all this, and having that conversation with not only your planner, but the caterer as well, making sure they're aware that the photographer, videographer, DJ, whoever needs to be fed first
yeah.
or same time as the couple.
Guests don't even need to know that.
No, we usually are
We're
off on
hidden
our own
away.
space.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're distracted.
They have literally no idea what's going on. That's kind of the idea. And so it's not trying to be selfish. It's not trying to be like getting anything extra out of it. This is our fuel. We need this to literally get through the rest of the night, especially if it's already been 6 hours in the day and we've been on our feet straight, running around, mentally being on top of every single thing.
About this.
I can't even...
I'm sweating.
Yeah.
My palms are sweating.
Horror story, seriously. Horror story, going back to what I was about to touch on before, was when I had this wedding a couple months ago. Like I said, the couple was wonderful, and they had that conversation with the caterer about feeding Byron and I, when they were getting fed, which was great. It worked out. We were able to sit down, have a breather, eat, use the restroom, get our lighting situation set, like
Prep
have
yourself.
our plan, like
Yeah.
go over like what we were going to do next, like, because that's like, you can't just like, this stuff is planned out, and it is planned out before. It's also planned out in the moment because you also have to consider lighting. The lighting is obviously a really big thing for us.
We've been behind and we're adjusting now.
Yeah,
like
a lot of times things don't
we
run on
miss
time.
this.
Hence the cushion timeline helps with that too. But then, so we got all our stuff together. We went outside with the bride and the groom to take some nighttime photos, and it was really pretty. And they did all that, and then they started going around and chatting with people. And I asked them if they wanted any photos with
table
that.
to table.
And they were like, no, we don't need those. And so we had an extra moment to kind of plan the next step. That was about like only 10 more minutes, I think, after that point. I believe, I don't know who this person was, but I believe it was someone from the catering company who came up to me and asked me who I was and if I was the photographer.
I'm Alicia.
And I confirmed that I was. And she goes, well, I don't know if you know this, but the bride and the groom requested that you eat at the same time that they do so that you can take photos after. And I, to this day, I'm like, my heart's racing because I like literally can't even handle.
Flabbergasted.
Like there were so many things just flashing in front of me and in my mind, just being like, why the hell is this person telling me? First off, yes, you are correct because it's in my contract.
Yeah.
That needs to happen. And two, why are you, she's like, so you should be like taking photos. And I'm like,
why are you telling me how to do my job?
I was like, I feel like I blacked out kind of too, just because
that gives me
I remember looking at
immense anger right
Byron
now.
and just being like, why the hell is this person sitting here telling me this information right now that I'm already aware of? I'm not telling you how to do your job. And I found it, out of all the years I've been doing this is the first time anyone has ever come up to me and said, because we were sitting at the table talking about the speeches that were about to happen, who was coming up, where we were going to set the lights up. We were working, but because we were sitting, apparently this person thought that we were just being lazy.
You know what I need to say to that is I'm sorry that you chose the wrong career and you have to be on your feet all day.
We do too, but
I get a moment to sit. Like, I'm sorry, my job's better.
well, sorry that we planned it out in a way that we are scheduled to actually have a break like any other type of job.
Also, I can't imagine the balls on somebody to
I
say
literally-
something. Like, I would never say anything to a caterer, a DJ, a florist, another videographer. Nothing about like, hey, you guys should probably be, gearing up for toast or whatever it might be. Like, that's your problem if you miss it.
Yeah. I mean, like, it literally, I was like, well, we just came back in from taking some photos and now we're planning for the next portion of the day, but I appreciate your concern.
I would have just said, yep, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, there was so many other things I wish I would have said or could have said, but also just trying to keep it professional. And I'm like, skirt, no.
I don't mean to rag on caterers.
No, but it's really unfortunate we've had situations where we've run into catering companies and people working for them. Yeah, just being really rude. And it's not everyone.
No.
We worked with other catering companies that are wonderful.
But the one and only time I have been yelled at a wedding, like yours, was a caterer. Again, my contract states that I eat at the same time as the bride and groom as to not miss anything that involves the bride and groom. And so the lovely planner of this venue, here's Barry. The lovely planner at this venue, she pulled myself, the second shooter, and the 2 videographers to the side and said that you guys are okay to go eat. And of course, it was a buffet, which is always the most awkward because then you do have to go through the line first, which is not the greatest. But she gave us the okay. She handed us our plates. We went through this buffet line and started serving ourselves. And the chef, the head caterer of this company, came over and got about 2 inches away from my face and started yelling at me about how rude it was that I was eating before the guests and how disrespectful and that I needed to wait. And I just kept saying to her politely, like, I understand, but the bride and groom are currently eating and the planner sent us over here, so you need to take it up with her. Like, we have pictures to be taking, so this is why we're eating. Like, take it up with her if you have a problem. Don't yell at me in front of everyone. And it was definitely the most embarrassing moment I've had at a wedding. I wish that she would have just pulled me to the side and said something. Also don't know why I was the point of contact when there was 4 other photographers there.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, that's...
Like, yeah. So
just overall, just like a lot of our episodes we've talked about, communication is key. Having these conversations...
Not have too much.
No. Having conversations with your vendors about other vendors, planning together.
I love planning together. Anytime I get a planner that reaches out to me ahead of time and we can go back and forth, like there is enough time to go back and forth and create a timeline that works best for both parties, that is the best wedding ever.
Yeah.
When I get a timeline.
Collaborating together.
If I get a timeline the day before or I show up and then they're giving me their version of the timeline because I couldn't get it or whatever it was, like, that makes things a little stressful and rocky.
Yeah, we want to have as much information ahead of time. I don't know how people go into wedding days and not have information, but...
Bless you.
Yeah,
I couldn't.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So, we touched on the dinner. So, dinner happens, and then, like we said, after dinner, things like dances happen, like the first dance with the couple, parents' dances. Sometimes there'll be random... I've seen a drinking game happen where the waterfall type of game.
Oh, that's cool. I haven't seen that.
But like random, things usually happen.
Everyone.
And then the dance floor opens up. And that's when, people are having a good time. They're enjoying themselves. This is where I come in and say, we only need about an hour, like max.
Max of dance photos.
Because you can only take so many of those. As time goes on in the night, people are drinking more alcohol. I don't know if you remember. I mean, when I was back, when I lived in Orlando and I was 22 years old and I was going out drinking every night because I was apparently able to handle that.
Yeah.
I just remember photos of like the beginning of the night, and then we had photos taken during the middle and then towards the end, and it was just a really harsh progression of like looking great to looking like dumpster fire. Just straight dumpster fire. Like looking homeless, makeup is everywhere, like
my hair looks like I showered.
Greasy as hell, especially because this was Florida, so it's just sweating constantly. And so, if people are like hardcore getting down on the dance floor, like those are really fun photos to get. But after a certain amount of time, like I said, it gets repetitive.
It does.
People start looking like dumpster fires. Those are not the photos that couples and our clients are going to be posting up on their. Like, granted, there might be like one really cool one. We do like cool effects and like that's something.
Light streaks and.
But generally speaking, about an hour max for the open dancing portion.
Yeah. And you have to remember there's lulls, right? Like there might be some songs that come on and people are just not feeling.
Yeah, they're like meh.
And then the dance floor is empty, and then your photographer and videographer are just standing there waiting.
You know, trying to encourage
Dancing.
whoever.
Or at that point, we might wander around and see, like, oh, do you guys want a photo? Do you guys want a photo? And sometimes people do, sometimes they don't. But, like, just using that time as efficiently as possible and thinking about when you do go to print your photos, if you have 300 dancing photos, you're going to print, what, 2 of those?
Yeah, I mean, they're fun to look at, but then after a certain point, you're like, well, what are you going to do with them? Like, having the memories is fun, but yeah, you're not going to do too much with them. And an hour is like max. Even like a half hour sometimes is good, especially if you know you're going to have guests and stuff that are really going to like get out on the dance floor and have a really good time. Like, that's cool too. And then the last thing, which can be moved around to a different part of the day, is the grand exit.
Yep.
Now, sometimes if a grand exit is scheduled, obviously for the very end of the night, the word exit, so normally just like exiting out,
right?
And
implies.
For anybody who doesn't know, it's like a tunnel of people, whether they're doing bubbles
sparklers,
or
confetti,
any of the lavender, you know, for trying to be you know, efficient and worldly, what is it, earth safe, you know, like
eco-friendly.
Eco-friendly.
Yeah.
There was another word. I might think of it. Sustainable. Yes.
Oh my God, we are so smart.
Oh, it's always just the vodka going straight to my head.
My brain power hurts me.
Right. So, anyways, it's a tunnel where people are just celebrating. You know, the couple running down, having a moment. They make out in the middle for a second, then they keep on going. They're like, bye. So, generally speaking, it's at the end, which sometimes happens about 2 to 3 hours. 3 is a lot, but about 2 hours after open dancing starts. Again, super dependent on what the couple has scheduled with the venue, but a lot of times it ends up happening after coverage is supposed to end for photographer or videographer. So a lot of times we'll suggest staging it, quote unquote, where you can either do it like right after the ceremony while it's still daylight out. If you want to do like bubbles and stuff, like that's kind of cool during the day, or like you said, confetti or like flowers or something, like that's really cool during the day too. You know, and then, or at night, if you wanted to do the sparkler exit. So if you staged it, like there's open dancing, you still have like another hour and a half of open dancing, but your vendors are about to leave. So then you stage it. You don't even have to have everyone, but if you want to, that's an opportunity, because also, who knows, like,
looks cooler in pictures.
It looks cool. You might have more people show up because, you know, some of the times the older guests, like grandparents or whoever, might want to leave before the end of the night anyways. So this includes them and that special part of the day. On top of it, you get to have it photographed. You get to have it, you know, a video of that. So, you know, staging it before the very end of the night so that your photographer and videographer can capture it as...
And then you just go right back to partying.
Yeah, and you go back to partying. Then you don't have to worry about the exit at the end of the night when everyone is really drunk and trying to deal with sparklers flying all over the place.
At that point, if you want, like when they shut everything down, then you might have a few minutes alone, just you and your honey. You could do like a solo dance when no one's around, or whatever it might be. You could sneak out before your guests and no one would know, which I'm always a fan of. I love, what is it, an Irish goodbye? Big fan.
Is that what it is?
I think so.
Just like leaving just like, meh.
You just leave without saying bye to people.
Yeah.
Or is it a Scottish goodbye? I think it's Irish. Irish goodbye, and you just like dip out, and everyone's like, I don't remember when Courtney left last night, but she was gone. Big fan.
Big fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say generally speaking, that's basically how like the photo timeline is broken down throughout the day. I guess it's, to some people, might be a little bit more intricate than they were thinking. You know,
it is definitely more.
A lot of planning that goes into it. We want to make sure each couple gets the photos that they want, you know, and when they want it, at our recommendation.
Yep.
And yeah, so I think overall the photo timeline is something, it's like the holy grail of the day for us.
Yeah.
That we refer back to, because without it, we would just be, I don't even know. I literally don't even want to think about trying to shoot a wedding with no wedding timeline.
Me neither. Anytime I've ever accidentally like misplaced my timeline, which is on my cell phone always, and or my Apple Watch.
Yep.
But if I like don't have my backpack or my phone's laying down, I immediately feel like I can't do anything. Like I'm frozen. I don't know what time anything's happening. Like what time our dance is happening. I don't know. How am I going to capture it if I don't know? And I just like go into a panic mode.
Yeah.
So I don't know how anyone would just be able to wing it.
No. And
If you are, good job.
If you are, good job. Also, like a little side note recommendation for anybody who wants, if you are the couple or a vendor, a photographer, a videographer, whoever, and you're specifically going off the photo timeline, you can always take a screenshot of the timeline on your phone and then save it on your lock screen.
Yep.
And you can just easily refer back to it. You don't have to open up your phone. You can just look right at it.
Don't have to fiddle with anything.
None of it. And it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, that's what I do. I have also considered taking a picture of it on my camera and making it the first photo. So then if you go backwards, it's always the first photo, but then it's really tiny. You have to zoom in. But that is an option too, because you're always going to have your camera with you.
I mean, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. And I don't always have my cell phone, but I try to.
Yeah, well, I got a fanny pack.
I know, me too, but sometimes I don't know how she wanders away. She cannot be trusted. Look at her. She's got legs.
She's super slutty. She just wants to get everywhere, all over everything.
To just see everyone.
She wants a new owner all the time, wants to be found by someone else.
It's true. It's so true.
Well, I think we covered a lot of really great information. And like I said, we will be showcasing an example of the timeline on the YouTube video. We will send out an example to our subscribers, and anyone who's interested, you can always reach out. Let us know via Instagram, Weddings Unedited, or our email, weddingsunedited@gmail.com.
It's us.
That's us, Courtney and Alicia. You can just let us know.
Yeah.
And we're always, again, open to, we have so many ideas for episodes, but if there's anything you ever want us to discuss, please don't hesitate to let us know. We are obviously open books. We're down to talk about whatever.
I want to hear it. And also, pertaining to this episode, if you're a planner and you have ideas of how we can work together better for more seamless timelines on your end and our end, or if you are a planner and you want to just learn more about lighting to help your own timeline, like, I am down to do that and have a conversation about that, so let us know.
Yeah, lighting is super important. Literally,
it is everything.
At the end of the day, it's all about lighting for us.
Yeah.
So keeping that in mind is super, super important. And yeah, this is wonderful. I can literally talk about this stuff all day.
We'll have to have like more photography.
I know, we
episodes.
need to. I feel like we haven't really talked too much of this is like what we do. We haven't had the opportunity
We're
to.
We're just waiting.
Yeah.
For the moment.
The good stuff.
As I got my editing day t-shirt on.
She does. It's really cute. And we said we might even start making t-shirts, and I don't know. Yeah. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But
one day.
And one day, more on our to-do list.
Yeah.
But always remember, communication is key with your vendors. And if you don't ever assume anything. Don't ever be afraid to ask your vendors. That's what we're here for.
Never ever.
No, and vendor to vendor. If you have any questions,
seriously,
like we said, planner, anybody. Yeah. Rather have too much information ahead of time instead of not having enough the day of and regretting something or butting heads or missing some, any of that. You don't want that to happen. So, yeah.
Until next time, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ding, 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 ding.
Ding, ding.
That was adorable.
I know.
I was a big fan of that one.
Yeah. Like I said, I feel like we just go on forever.
I know, we could, but
I can't tell how long it is. I don't know when we're at that.
It's an hour.
There we go.